My name is Busayo and I just thought I should introduce myself as your host on Broken Road podcast. We'll try and make it a weekly podcast, and the foundation for Broken Road is based on Isaiah chapter 61 verse 1, which says that he has sent me to comfort the brokenhearted and to proclaim the captives will be released and prisoners will be freed. Our vision on Broken Road is to proclaim healing, freedom, and liberation from abuse.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Broken Road. Broken Road is our space where we proclaim healing, liberation, and freedom from abuse. My name is Busayo. Thank you for joining me again today. I sincerely appreciate everyone who took their time out to listen to last week's episode, which was on Apology by Proxy. Thank you so much for the reception. You can still listen to it if you haven't done so. It's currently on Spotify and we're now live on Apple Podcast as well. So thank you so much. I hope it was a blessing to you, even as it was for me. Today on Broken Road, we're going to be speaking on the topic which I consider, or which I labeled No Shame and No Blame. So no shame, no blame actually came from a discussion I had with someone last year. In the course of preparing for a program on abuse, we started talking about it. And she said something about how abuse could be prevented through prayers. And when she said it, I felt deeply hurt within me. Because sometimes if you're looking in from outside, you think that maybe the person, the warrior who is going through abuse or who has been through abuse did something wrong that put them in that situation where they are, or probably maybe they're not strong enough in God, or they didn't pray hard enough, or maybe you just label, you try to shame them, or maybe you blame them for the situation. If somebody talks about how their spouse hits them, or some people might say, what did you say? They typically say that for what did you say to him that made him hit you? You don't have to say anything to anybody to make anybody. Nobody has the right to hit the other person. And this is talking about physical abuse. We've not even delved into the issue of emotional abuse. When it comes to emotional abuse as well, you don't have the right to minimize anybody. You don't have the right to make anybody feel bad about themselves. No, they didn't do. There's nothing anyone could have done to have brought that upon themselves. So, and abuse is a traumatic experience, as I keep mentioning. And one of the emotional responses to the trauma of abuse is this feeling of guilt and shame. So it's perfectly normal for anyone who is going through or who has been through abuse to have those feelings of those feelings of shame and blame. So you're already experiencing these feelings. We don't need anyone to add more to what we're already experiencing. We already have those feelings of shame and those feelings of guilt. So I just want to use this opportunity to tell every one of my warriors that it is perfectly normal for you to feel guilt, and it is normal for you to feel shame. It's part of the trauma which you're experiencing or which you have experienced. And the guilt often presents itself as a deep feeling of regret from the belief that you could or should have done something different at the time that the trauma occurred. This is kind of similar to what rape victims go through after they experience the rape. They start to question their actions. Was it that they didn't fight hard enough while the raping was occurred? Or is it that maybe they in some way instigated the rape? So it's normal, it's part of the stress that comes after the abuse or during the abuse. So it's perfectly normal for one to experience these feelings. But the thing about these feelings is that they could be debilitating. They can keep one down and hinder the healing process. This is the reason why I decided to make this the second topic on Broken Road. The first one was Apology by Proxy. The second one, which is also a foundational topic, is No Shame, No Blame. I just want to offer some tips on how to at least help us through these feelings of guilt. So, and I want to draw from a biblical experience. This was actually what God used to teach me about regrets and moving on from regrets. Life happens. And, just before I go on to the Bible story, there was something I remembered right now. I remember in the course of that discussion with the person, I mentioned the children of Israel. If you know about the Bible, you remember how the children of Israel fell into slavery. They didn't take themselves, they had to go to Egypt during the time of famine, in the time of Joseph. And when they were in Egypt, Joseph was a high-ranking officer in the cabinet of Pharaoh. So at that time, when Joseph was still alive, they were not considered to be slaves. If they had, there was no way they could have known that they were going to be taken as slaves by Pharaoh in the future, a Pharaoh that did not remember the impacts that Joseph had to the history of Egypt. So was it their fault that they were taken into slavery? So I want you to consider that, anytime you think about yourself or you think about the abuse that you've been through or what you're going through, it's not your fault. Nobody has, you did not do anything to deserve the abuse. No, you didn't. Nobody had any right to be abusive towards you. There is nothing that you did that triggered the abuse. That abuse, don't own it, is not your problem. It is the problem of the abusive person. So the Bible story that I'm trying to draw from to teach us about how God himself handled this issue of what I consider, in quotation marks, a mistake, because entering into an abusive relationship is a mistake. We don't plan to find ourselves in one, but we do. So, and once it happens, life happens, you just move, you try as more. I know it's difficult. That is the whole essence of having this program, to kind of help and guide us through the healing process. And just to mention this, Broken Road is not a substitute for therapy. I believe anyone who I'm a therapist in training myself. I'm presently in my third year at the Houston Baptist University. I'm studying clinical mental health counseling. I believe that anyone who has been through abuse is traumatic. I believe you need to find healing in therapy as well. The whole essence of Broken Road is at least to start us off on that path where we can, that's the reason why we're going to be drawing from research, drawing from, even the Bible, personal experience, and different things together to help us at least start us off on that journey towards healing. So the Bible story that God used to teach me about this issue of moving on from regret is found in 1 Samuel chapter 9. It is the story of King Saul. So King Saul's father's name was Kish. He was a wealthy man. So at some point, I believe he lost his donkeys, and he told his son Saul to go look for them. He in the company of some of his servants. So Saul searched for days and couldn't find the donkeys. He was getting tired. He wanted to turn back. And then, about the time this story was unfolding, the children of Israel wanted a king. And God, just before Saul, okay, let me not go into that yet. So anyway, so Saul was getting tired of looking for the donkeys. And on his way, was like, maybe they should turn back. So one of his servants said, no, don't let's turn back. How about there's a man of God in this city. How about we seek his help and assistance to see maybe he can help us find the donkey. So reluctantly, Saul decided to go find the donkey, to go seek out the man of God. So on their way, in the meantime, the day before Saul was to appear in the presence of the man of God, which was Samuel, God had revealed to Samuel that the person that was going to become the next king of the first king of Israel was going to be visiting him the following day, which was Saul. God arranged it. Can you imagine that the Almighty God arranged it? It was such a dramatic episode the way Samuel found or located Saul. So after, he anointed Saul, told him he was going to become king, Now let's fast forward to 1 Samuel 15, verse 11. This was after Saul had become king of Israel and he had disobeyed God a multiple of times. So it now got to a stage where God was really tired, and God told Samuel that he regrets to have ever made Saul king. This is God Almighty. So how, if we try and reason, as a man would, okay, so are you trying to say that God didn't know that Saul was going to disobey him before he installed him as the king, the first king of Israel? Even the Bible records that Saul was the most handsome man in Israel at that time, like he was taller than everybody else. But God chose him, and the way God chose him was dramatic. And I don't see anywhere, I haven't read anywhere in the Bible that God said, oh, he chose him to punish the children of Israel. No, he didn't do so. Unlike Pharaoh, like the Pharaoh that drowned in the Red Sea, like God, it was written in the Bible that God actually raised him up for that purpose. But it wasn't said of Saul to be that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that God, life, things happen. And the way God opened my eyes to see it was that after he realized he had made a mistake, he uttered it out that he regrets making Saul king of Israel. God moved on from it. He did. He wasn't burdened by the guilt or by shame or by blame or anything. No, he moved on from it. And he didn't blame himself, that, okay, maybe he didn't see or recognize who Saul was. No, things happen that you have no control over. So I want us all to see the abusive situation that we're presently in, or that we're going through, or that we've been through in the past, as a situation that we had no control over. We didn't bring it on ourselves. No. This is something that happened. We don't deserve to be going through it. We don't deserve to have been abused. No. How about young children who were abused by their parents? Is it because of a sin they committed? A child that is just born, what sin did that child commit? Is it that the child should have known that the parents will be abusive? Or imagine a situation where a child or a young, maybe like a teenager, is being molested or sexually abused by a family member. Is it the child's fault or the teenager's fault? No, it isn't. It is the fault of the individual that keeps abusing or molesting the child. So we shouldn't place any blame on ourselves. It is not our fault that we entered into the abusive relationship. I know there are a lot of people that are going to disagree with me, but it's not your fault that you're being abused. It's not your fault that you married a character or personality disordered person who seeks to abuse you. No, it isn't. Or that you're employed by a boss who is abusive. Okay, let's even look at the situation of a boss. When you present your resume for consideration by the company you applied to, is there any way you should have known that that boss will be abusive? Of course not. Unless, even with a crystal ball, I doubt if you'll be able to pick that out. If God did not, knowing what Saul did, eventually how he disobeyed him, if God still chose Saul, and there's nowhere that God said, oh, I saw this from, I know God is all, he sees all, but at least he didn't mention that. I believe he placed that in the Bible for a particular reason, so that it will help guide those of us that may be experiencing some deep sense of guilt or shame. So let's try as much as possible. I understand and I know that it's because of the trauma that we're experiencing. It is part of the trauma. It goes along with the territory. It is a normal response to that trauma. But on that said, after saying that, I still want you to, anytime you have such feelings, you have to recognize it as what it is. They are not valid feelings. So whenever it comes up, recognize that as such and tell yourself, remind yourself that you didn't do anything to deserve what you're presently going through. And even as God did, the minute God regretted, he acknowledged the fact that, okay, I made a mistake by appointing this person. And the next thing was he moved on. He started seeking his plan B. David, he did not sit down and dwell on it. No, he moved on to plan B. Even though it took a while before plan B was actually installed, but he set the action in motion. So thank you again for joining me today. I just hope that we'll be able to draw from these experiences and also be able to see the guilt and the shame that we're experiencing as a symptom of the trauma which we have experienced. Thank you, and I hope you join me again next week.